The alarming rise of pro-Hamas activism on the campuses of Western universities following the October 7 Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel was, among other things, an uncanny manifestation of wokeism. Under the overarching but selectively applied rhetorical framework of peace, human rights, and freedom of speech and expression, aggressive mobs of brainwashed students unleashed a virulent wave of anti-Semitism on Western campuses. The wave of pro-Hamas activism across Western universities was a glaring example of a curious phenomenon in which perpetrators cast themselves as victims. The heavily radicalized student mobs chanting pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic slogans, many of whom likely had little understanding of what they were protesting, can best be described as victims of Islamist radicalization on university campuses. The UAE recently blocked federal funding for students applying to UK universities over fears of campus radicalization, most notably due to the perceived overwhelming influence of the Muslim Brotherhood in British universities. An Islamic nation taking preventive measures out of concern that its youth may be radicalized in British universities is a masterclass in irony. It is deeply telling of the extent of radical Islamist influence in UK universities and the British government's continued appeasement of Islamist groups. For a country like India, with a vast student population for whom the UK remains one of the most sought-after destinations for higher education, especially in the wake of the US tightening visa regulations, this phenomenon is even more alarming. The social sciences, humanities, and liberal arts departments of elite Indian universities continue to host speakers espousing radical Islamist ideologies under the influence of wokeism. Moreover, Indian students in top British universities, such as Oxford, increasingly find themselves scapegoated within an ecosystem marked by a subtle but powerful foregrounding of anti-India and anti-Hindu narratives. In such a scenario, it is imperative that Indian parents wake up and confront the reality of Islamist radicalization on UK campuses before it is too late. UAE's snub to UK universities over fears of Islamist radicalization on campus in what can best be described as a dramatic turning of the tables and a major embarrassment for the UK. The UAE recently restricted state funding for its citizens seeking to study at British universities, alleging that students risk radicalization due to the overwhelming influence of Muslim Brotherhood-linked elements within the UK education system. The move followed the UK government's reluctance to ban the Muslim Brotherhood, which has been designated a terrorist organization by several Islamic countries, including the UAE. The UAE's Education Ministry reportedly published a revised list of foreign universities approved for official recognition and government funding. The list, which included institutions in the US, France, Australia, and even Israel, notably omitted British universities. According to media reports, when British officials raised concerns about the omission, UAE authorities made it clear that the decision was deliberate. Several reports quoted a source with direct knowledge of the discussions as saying, "They do not want their children to be radicalized on campus." A recent report by GB News warned of growing concerns over the Muslim Brotherhood's infiltration of UK universities. According to the report, the organization uses student groups as a shield to evade scrutiny while propagating extremist discourse, inviting Islamist speakers to campuses to deliver lectures that could push young people toward extremism. The report further cited official UK figures showing that during the 2023-24 academic year, 70 university students were referred for possible inclusion in the government's Prevent De-Radicalization program due to concerns about Islamist radicalization. Notably, this figure was nearly double the number reported in the previous academic year. This is not the first time the UAE has warned the UK about the Muslim Brotherhood. The country has repeatedly applied trade and geopolitical pressure on the British government to push for a ban on the organization. According to a report by The Guardian, in November 2015, the UAE reportedly threatened to block billion-pound arms deals with the UK, cut off inward investment, and halt intelligence cooperation if then Prime Minister David Cameron failed to act decisively against the group. Stop Hindudvesha has carried out in-depth coverage of the alarming rise of radical Islamization in Europe, which has in turn fueled a rise in far-right activism. Across the continent, governments and civil society movements are increasingly questioning the long-standing model of multiculturalism that has shaped European cultural and political life over the past few decades. The UK, however, stands at a precarious crossroads, where elements within the radical Islamist ecosystem are embedded in government and political discourse to such an extent that any discussion about the need to counter Islamist radicalization is immediately shamed and silenced with accusations of Islamophobia. Even as the UK remains conflicted over adopting an official definition of Islamophobia, the government continues to take an evasive stance on banning the Muslim Brotherhood, which has been placed under close review but remains unbanned. In 2015, the David Cameron government conducted a review of the Muslim Brotherhood's activities, concluding that the organization could be considered a possible indicator of extremism. However, the Cameron government stopped short of banning the group. Despite mounting concerns over the alarming rise of Islamist radicalization across British campuses, several Muslim political leaders in the UK continue to whitewash terrorism. An article published by The Spectator in April 2025 critiqued a social media message posted by London Mayor Sadiq Khan on the occasion of Eid. The writer argued that under the guise of unity and peace, Khan delivered a politicized monologue that whitewashes terrorism, stokes division, and fundamentally misrepresents the moral landscape of the Israel-Palestinian conflict. In September 2025, Jewish media outlets also raised concerns over the elevation of British politician Shabana Mahmood to the post of Home Secretary, citing her past support for the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, PSC, and the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, BDS, movement. In 2014, Mahmood reportedly joined an anti-Israel demonstration that led to the temporary closure of a Sainsbury's supermarket amid claims that it was selling products from Israeli companies. History of the Muslim Brotherhood founded in Egypt in 1928 by a schoolteacher and Islamic cleric named Hassan. Al-Banna, the Muslim Brotherhood is rooted in an ideology that calls for the establishment of Islamic states governed by Sharia, or Islamic law. Its slogan, "Islam is the solution," clearly signals its radical Islamist foundations. The Cairo Review of Global Affairs describes it as a radical, theocratic organization from its very inception in the second decade of the last century. In 1954, a member of the Muslim Brotherhood attempted to assassinate Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser in Alexandria, firing 8 shots at the platform where the president was speaking. Although Nasser escaped unharmed, several others present on the stage were injured. The assassination attempt triggered a sweeping crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood, resulting in the imprisonment of hundreds of its members. Soon after its founding, the Muslim Brotherhood established branches across the Arab world. Many radical Islamist movements outside the Arab world, now notorious for their involvement in terrorism, trace their ideological origins to the Muslim Brotherhood. The Pakistan-based Jamaat-e-Islami is one such extremist organization rooted in the Brotherhood's Islamist philosophy. In the 1950s, the Egyptian government intensified its crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood due to its politicized interpretation of Islam, which was viewed as a threat to national security. After the organization was outlawed in Egypt, several other Islamic countries, including Iraq, Tunisia, and Syria, initiated similar crackdowns in the decades that followed. This led to the gradual infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood into Europe. Many members of the organization entered European countries, such as the UK, France, Germany, Switzerland, etc., as refugees, and then began to work in European countries to create Islamist organizations. Muslim Brotherhood's infiltration into British society and university campuses, the Muslim Brotherhood began making deep inroads into British civil society, the political sphere, and academia as early as the 1990s. In September 1999, the group established a global information center in London. A press release reportedly published in Muslim News following its opening stated that the center would specialize in promoting the perspectives and stances of the Muslim Brotherhood and communicate between Islamic movements and the global mass media. The growing presence of Afghan Islamists in London during the 1990s, who allegedly used the city as a base to conduct terror operations against France, led French security agencies to label the English capital Londonistan. In the 1980s, several political Islamist organizations emerged in London that shared the Muslim Brotherhood's goal of establishing a caliphate. One such group, Hizb ut-Tahrir, Islamic Liberation Party HT, began making inroads into prominent British universities such as the University of London, initially targeting Arab students. The group soon became controversial within student circles for its anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic, anti-Hindu, anti-Sikh, homophobic, and anti-democratic campaigning. It was eventually banned in 1994 by the National Union of Students, and following numerous complaints from Jewish student organizations, strict guidelines against religious coercion were subsequently issued. Another alarming factor in the context of rising Islamist radicalization on British campuses is that many Muslim Brotherhood leaders in the UK arrived in the country as students, often as members of influential families already affiliated with the organization. For instance, Abdullah el-Haddad, a British-born, London-based engineering student, came from a prominent Brotherhood family and later became a spokesperson for the movement. His father, Essam el-Haddad, obtained a PhD from the University of Birmingham, co-founded Islamic Relief Worldwide, and was a senior Muslim Brotherhood member before being arrested and imprisoned in Cairo. Several university faculty members are also reported to have links with the radical Islamist outfit. Tariq Ramadan is one such figure. He served as professor of contemporary Islamic studies at St. Antony's College, Oxford, and within the Faculty of Theology and Religion at the University of Oxford until 2017. He is the grandson of the Muslim Brotherhood's founder, Hassan al-Banna, and his father was also a prominent member of the organization. At present, prominent student groups such as the Federation of Student Islamic Societies, FOSIS, have been cited as having links to the Brotherhood. Established in 1963, FOSIS claims to represent and support more than 350 Muslim students and Islamic societies across the UK and Ireland. The Muslim Brotherhood's opaque, dispersed structure also makes it difficult for authorities to crack down on the organization or for any comprehensive ban to be truly effective. As highlighted in several reports, the Brotherhood's modus operandi in the West relies on controlled decentralization. A wide network of affiliated organizations operates across Western democracies, gradually embedding itself within civil society, academia, and the political ecosystem. Under the Brotherhood's umbrella, nationally representative organizations are formed that actively seek to influence media, as well as local and national authorities. From registered companies and charities to academic centers, think tanks, religious associations, and even sports clubs, the Brotherhood has entrenched itself so deeply within civil society and academia that identifying the precise sources of radicalization becomes exceedingly difficult. In some respects, the Muslim Brotherhood may be even more dangerous than terrorist groups that openly conduct attacks and release footage claiming responsibility. The Brotherhood, by contrast, has evolved over decades into a more sophisticated, insidious, and pervasive movement that seeks to reshape democratic societies from within by indoctrinating individuals at the grassroots level through media, academia, political participation, and the think tank ecosystem. This is precisely what makes the active presence of groups directly or indirectly affiliated with the Brotherhood on UK university campuses such a formidable challenge. The rhetoric of Islamophobia, combined with the growing political influence of the radical Islamist ecosystem in the UK, leaves vulnerable university students as unfortunate scapegoats in this broader struggle over radicalization. Beyond the Muslim Brotherhood, UK universities as a hotbed of Islamist radicalization, if one goes by the vast body of research reports, media, literature, and analyses readily available in the public domain, UK universities have gradually emerged as a hotbed of Islamist radicalization, extending beyond the Muslim Brotherhood. The rising wave of pro-Hamas activism and anti-Semitism on British university campuses following the October 7 Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel has been highlighted by numerous media reports. Multiple university societies and student groups have been accused of maintaining ties with Hamas. In May 2025, 18 university societies reportedly endorsed a legal bid to deproscribe Hamas as a terrorist organization under Section 4 of the Terrorism Act 2000. Among these were the London School of Economics Palestine Society and the Student Staff Coalition for Palestine at the University of Birmingham. Several UK university societies have also been criticized for inviting speakers affiliated with Hamas or the Muslim Brotherhood. Moreover, a number of student societies, including the University College London, UCL, Marxist Society, were reportedly suspended for advocating Intifada until victory, interpreted as violent resistance, or for actively supporting banned terrorist organizations. A research report titled British Universities Continue to Breed Extremists, published by the Combating Terrorism Centre in 2011, provides an overview of the background of terror network infiltration into UK universities. According to the report, British university campuses played a significant role in shaping the evolution of global jihadist networks during the 1990s. It further claims that several UK universities became covert recruitment hubs for jihadist groups, supplying them with recruits whose UK passports enabled them to move freely around the world. The report cites multiple examples of British Muslims found to be involved in the planning and execution of terrorist attacks. The report makes a compelling case for further research into the extent of radicalization on UK university campuses, particularly in relation to students who went on to plan and execute real-world terrorist attacks. It emphasizes that many university graduates seem to have played key roles in those terrorist attacks that came closest to success. It also presents a disturbing case study of London's City University, outlining a sequence of events during the 2009-2010 academic year in which a student society fostered an environment conducive to the dissemination of radical Islamist ideology on campus. A separate report titled Radical Islam on UK Campuses, published by the Henry Jackson Society in 2010, provides a comprehensive Overview of Islamist radicalization within British universities. The report documents detailed information on the Islamic Society, ISOC, presidents and senior members involved in terrorism in the UK. Profiles of students at UK universities convicted of Islamism-inspired terrorist offenses. A university-wise overview of radical preachers active on UK campuses. Disturbing findings from a 2008 survey of student attitudes toward Islam in the UK. Nearly 32% of Muslim students surveyed stated that killing in the name of religion was sometimes justified, while 33% expressed support for a global Islamic caliphate governed by Sharia law. A cautionary tale for Indian students, the proliferation of anti-Hindu and anti-India narratives on the campuses of elite Indian universities has not gone unnoticed. Stop Hindudvesha has extensively documented the uncritical import of wokeism into the humanities, social sciences, and liberal arts departments of leading Indian universities. This trend has contributed to the widespread dissemination of radical Islamist and anti-Hindu narratives, often aligned with the far left. In several instances, humanities departments at prestigious Indian institutions have provided platforms to voices that endorse terrorism either covertly or overtly. For instance, in November 2023, students at IIT Bombay filed a police complaint against an online talk delivered by radical leftist Sadhanva Deshpande, which allegedly glorified Palestinian terrorists. Western academia and campus activism remain the epicenter of the wave of anti-India and anti-Hindu narratives that have increasingly influenced segments of the social sciences and humanities in elite Indian universities. In India, however, the phenomenon is relatively less alarming and is often counterbalanced by the growing visibility of nationalist perspectives in academia and the weakening dominance of leftist narratives. This has gradually opened up a more balanced discursive space in which non-left viewpoints can also find expression. However, given the alarming reality of the presence of jihadist networks on UK university campuses, Hindu parents in India would do well to keep the larger picture in mind while planning their children's higher education, and to educate them about the potential dangers of Islamist radicalization on campuses. The influence of the Pakistani establishment on debate and discourse at prestigious British institutions such as Oxford, as illustrated by the recent controversy surrounding the Oxford Union debate on India's policy toward Pakistan, is well documented. An analysis of several Oxford Union debates held over the past few years reveals a consistent and deliberate anti-India framing on issues ranging from Kashmir to assessments of the Modi government. In an ideologically charged academic environment, Hindu students, with their inherent tolerance and openness toward diverse cultural beliefs and traditions rooted in a non-rigid Dharmic ethos and a non-Abrahamic worldview, often become easy scapegoats for campus radicalization. As the wave of pro-Hamas demonstrations across Western campuses following October 7 demonstrated, Hindu students influenced by woke and far-left narratives can be susceptible to radicalization. Beyond the risk of direct ideological indoctrination, the strong presence of jihadist networks on British campuses also makes Hindu students particularly vulnerable to harassment and abuse. The openly anti-Hindu posture of these networks raises serious concerns about the prospect of cultural policing of Hindu students in British universities. Wrapping up what makes the danger of Islamist radicalization on UK university campuses even more immediate and pervasive is the reluctance of authorities to acknowledge the problem, let alone take corrective action. The rhetoric of Islamophobia, combined with a persistent pattern of Islamist appeasement and the creation of an environment conducive to the growth of jihadist networks in the name of a free society and freedom of expression, leaves students on British university campuses highly vulnerable to radical Islamist indoctrination. For Hindu students from India, these vulnerabilities are compounded by the prevalence of toxic identity politics, where those who openly express concern are quickly branded as Hindutva or Islamophobic. The broader silence of Western academia on the issue of Hinduphobia only serves to deepen and aggravate this crisis.